Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 on the Checkmate series, and I'm going to show you 6 more checkmates in this video. I think it's going to be a 4-part series. I'm getting all the topics off a book called and examples off a book called The Art of Checkmate, which is an old book but it's really instructive, and also I'd recommend purchasing it for a lot more examples and loads of puzzles as well, which helps improve my tactical ability. Anyway, and you sure you can get it for a couple of quid off Amazon. But anyway, this is a quick look at the Greek gift sack, which is called Greco's sack in the book because Greco found it by making 6 rather dubious moves which go like this. And now here comes the blow. Bishop takes h7 check. And black's only a pawn down if it declines it, but if he accepts it, then you play knight g5 check and you are either winning the queen or checkmating. Let's have a look at all the variations. If king g8, then we go queen h5. Of course, if the king had gone to h8, then this would be check and then mate and h7 would follow. And now if rook e8, then we have check and mate. If bishop takes knight, then after h takes g5, the h line has been opened. And after the only move to create a flight square for the king, it is simply shut off by g6. The king can't escape and it is mate on h7 or h8 next turn. So king g8 doesn't work. If the knight is taken, then you take back with check. And now the king can't go back because then we have the last variation. So king g6 and now queen h5 check, king f5 and queen h3 check. If the king goes into e4, then queen d3 is mate. But at least you've got a centralised king for the endgame, but it's been mated first. King g6 and queen h7 is mate. And now back to the original position. If king g6, then usually queen g4 is a good move in these positions, but a forced win is h5 check. And now if king f5, then we have an embarrassing pawn mate. And if king h6, then knight takes f7 check, double check, wins the queen, and the game. If the king had gone to h6 on first move, then it did knight takes f7, double check straight away. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this example. There is a lot more on the sacrifice. I'd recommend looking at The Art of Attack by Vladimir Vukovic for more details. He devotes a whole chapter to it. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this example, and on to the next one. This is a game, Paul Keres versus Alexander Alekhine, and it's an example of one of the world's best players falling for a back rank checkmate, which is the checkmate example. So I'll just whiz through the moves because they're not as important. Keres was white. We've got the deferred Steinitz variation of the Royal Lopez, where white's got this nagging space advantage. And now black can't castle now. Now the bishop's diagonal has been open, but Keres sacks a pawn to keep it closed, which isn't accepted. Obviously the knight was immune here because of queen takes d7 mate. And now in this position, Keres is up a pawn, and black hasn't really got any counterplay, but he can still put up a fight. But now he makes an astonishing blunder with queen b4, and now see if he can spot a forced mate for white based on the back rank checkmate theme. A queen takes d7 check, and Alekhine resigned because after rook takes d7, now he can play rook e8, and after rook goes back, rook d takes d8 is checkmate. And that's an example of the back rank mate, and now a very strong player can fall for it, and it's one of Alekhine's shortest losses in only 23 moves. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that example of a back rank checkmate, and on to the next one. This is a game, Grunfeld versus Torre. Grunfeld invented the Grunfeld defense, and Torre invented the Torre attack. So they're both good with their openings. And this game is a Dutch stonewall, and this is an example of another Greco's mate where you sacrifice a knight on g3 or g6, and that opens up the h line, and you've got a bishop controlling the square next to king, so the queen can give mate, or even a rook can give mate along the h line. Let's see it in action. So it's a Dutch stone wall. Torres black. You see, we've got the bishop on d6, the knight on e4. These pawns all on light squares. And now it looks like white can play d takes c5, but this actually allows a forced mate. Grunfeld should have played f takes c4, and after knight g4 we've got a sharp unclear position. But after d takes c5, now that diagonal for the bishop has been opened, and this is fatal. After bishop c5 check, king h1, black to play a mate in 3 moves. Pause the video if you want to try and spot it. Knight takes g3 check. After h takes g3, queen h6. You see, this is an example because the queen's mating down the h line and the bishop's controlling the square next to king. And after bishop h3, queen takes h3 is mate. And there's many examples of this. I've done it a few times on Chess Cube. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this example, and on to the next one. This is an example of it's actually a couple of examples in this one. There's Anastasia's mate, and there's also a different type of mate which I'm not sure what it's called. It comes out of some thing known by Alaska, some like opening thing. But anyway, it goes e4, e5. We have a Berlin wall, Royal Lopez. But we've got a very trappy line now. After knight takes b5, white plays knight takes e5, and it is well known that the only move here is bishop e7. Another way to fall in for the trap is knight takes c3, knight takes c6 check, bishop e7, knight takes, and now check. And after knight takes c7, equal material, but the knight's trapped. And white's knight can move away with discoveries. But another way to fall into this trap is knight takes c5, and after rook takes c5, bishop e7. You don't take the piece back, you play knight d5, just sacking the piece to mount the pressure. And after castles, knight takes c7 check, king h8. Now queen h5 wins on the spot. And here, an example of Anastasia's mate is usually when there's a knight on e7, and a rook can swing to the h line, and the knight covers the squares for king, and then you sack the queen to do it on h7. So if black ignores it, then the forced mate in 2 moves, which is Anastasia's mate, which is queen takes h7 check, king takes the rook h5 mate, where there's a pawn on g7, and now the knight controls the other 2 squares, and the rook gives mate along the h line, and this is also a very common checkmate. Another checkmate is g6, and now queen h6, and now if d6, then we have rook h5. The only way to stop mate is to take it, and queen f6 is mate, where the queen is giving mate along the diagonal and the knight is controlling the other square. I hope you've enjoyed this example, and on to the next one, which is the penultimate one. This is an example of Boden's mate, which usually occurs on the queenside castle king, where a queen sacrifices itself on c6 or something, and then it clears the square for the bishop to deliver mate on a6. And it's usually done by 2 bishops, and the king's cut off. And the Scandinavian defence is a very common opening for this to happen, because you play c6 along castle queenside. So e4, 5. This is a game between 2 amateurs. And now, although black can castle a lot in the queenside in Scandinavia, this is an example of where not to, because he gets mated a few moves later. Because look at that bishop's pointing menacingly at the black king. a3, preparing to bring a pawn storm, and now queen b6, knight a4, and queen takes d4, and forced mate in 2 moves for white. Queen takes c6 check, they has to take, and then bishop a6 is mate. And look at those scissoring bishops that deliver checkmate, and the king's cut off by d7 and d8, leaving the bishops free to deliver checkmate. And the pawn on b7 had to be deflected by that queen sacrifice, so the bishop can deliver mate. And this is also a very common mate. And if your opponent's castle queenside and has a pawn on c6 or c3, I'd look out for these mates, especially if you've got 2 raking bishops. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this example, and on to the last one. This is an example of Blackburn's mate, which is named after Joseph Henry Blackburn, not the town in Lancashire. And this is again we're beating amateur with it in 14 moves, and it's not really mega common because you need a queen and 3 minor pieces, and you stack the queen, and but it's not that difficult to spot, and it does crop up. So let's see. The opening is actually Jerome's Gambit, which is some really unsound double piece sack. But after Queen H5 check, the critical test is King E6, but Blackburn plays G6, which supposedly isn't that good. Queen takes D6, Queen takes H8, so he's actually sacrificed all the material back and more to get the initiative after Queen H4, castles, Knight F6. And now White should play Queen D8, Bishop B6, E5, takes, and Queen D3. And Black's not got enough compensation here because he hasn't got any immediate threats, and White can free up the queen side, and his king's still quite open. But he plays C3, a blunder, and now Knight G4, H3, Bishop takes F2, check, King H1, and now a great move, Bishop F5, just sacking the other rook, because after Queen takes A8, see if you can spot a forced mate in 2 moves. Blackburn's mate is characterised by the pattern Queen takes H3 check, deflecting the pawn away, so after it takes, now Bishop takes E4 mate is possible, where the 2 bishops and knight cut the king off, and despite being a queen and 2 rooks behind for a bishop, White is mated by the last 3 minor pieces on the board. Black's not got any heavy pieces, and this is a beautiful checkmate. I suppose all these checkmates I'm showing are beautiful, and I hope you've enjoyed them all, and look out for part 3 coming later. I will try and do the other 2 parts today because it's Leyland Congress tomorrow, so I will want to do videos of my games. Please look at the links I'm putting in the description box and subscribe to us. And for now, please leave any comments and thoughts. Thanks very much.